This is the pattern that took the knitting world by storm, or maybe just my Instagram feed. But this top in particular that I'm talking about is the Ivy top, and it is a pattern by petiteknit. Now, this is going to be my first ever pattern that I'm knitting of petiteknits, so I thought that it would be a good time as ever to film the process of me knitting this Ivy top and just talking about my experiences along the way. I have been holding off on knitting this pattern for the past month because I had way too many whips and things on my needles, and my 4mm needles were being used for other projects, and because of that I just didn't really want to start yet, but I just can't wait anymore and I have to start. So this is the yarn that I'm using for this project, and this is by Sandnes Garn. It is Tynn Line. It is the suggested yarn, so this is how it looks like if it will just focus. So something like this. She's cute. So this is Tynn Line in the shade 2112, I believe it is called light yellow, and she's beautiful. I have been in such a yellow phase lately, knitting my Brady Loop tee, my Darjeeling blouse, those are yellow, and this is going to be my third yellow blouse. And initially when I first wanted to knit this pattern, I wanted to hold the yarn single. So I knitted a gauge swatch of holding the yarn single, and it is super flowy. There's a lot of drip to it. I knitted this on 3mm needles, and this is how she looks like. A lot of drip, looking really good. Slightly translucent. I'm not sure if it can show on the camera, but it is slightly see-through, and so I decided that I would just follow what petiteknit suggested, which is to hold the Tynn Line double and to use 4mm needles. I feel like this yarn is super drapey, but it's drapey to the point where I feel like it wouldn't really give the final look that the Ivy top is supposed to have with the slightly raised collar over here. So I just feel like this holding Tynn Line single would have a totally different look than what is intended of the Ivy top. So because of that, I would just follow petiteknit. She knows best after all. So without further ado, let's cast on for this project. This yarn right from the get-go, first impressions, it is super soft. It feels a little bit, just a little bit dry to the skin, but it really does feel almost like the drop spell. So I do think I would like the final garment as well. You can just find the end. Alright, so I have finished casting all my stitches, and I also changed to a shorter cable needle. I'm using my shorties actually, and this is how it looks like so far. I don't know why I always end up casting on such long needles, although the 40cm cable length was suggested. I'm using 20cm I believe, but I think petiteknit wanted to use the magic loop, but I am allergic to magic loop. I try not to do it if I can, so I switched to shorties, and so once I start doing the increases, I'll change back to the normal cable length needles. This is the current status of things. Not too much done. I am realizing that the raw cast on edge is going to be the final neckline. I think it is, because I don't really see any finishes briefly glancing through the entire pattern, so I think it's fine. I think it's still okay, and I'll just continue knitting it around for now.
The breeze brings goosebumps to my skin. Tonight the whiskey feels stronger.
This is day 2 of me knitting this Ivy top, and this is the progress I've done so far. Not too much. I didn't knit this yesterday, and so therefore this is technically day 2, and I am at a point where I need to bind off for this shoulder area. So I've done one part of the bind off over here, and I've reached the other point, and I need to bind off for this part now. And I have 1 hour before I have to leave for work, so let's hope that this 1 hour is super productive. And since I only have 1 hour, I thought it would be a good time as any to make this sort of a talking kind of session. Obviously, if I have to talk, that means I probably wouldn't be as productive, but you know what, that's fine. I just want to talk a little bit about the yarn that I'm using first. So this is the Sandnes Garn Tynn Line, as I mentioned probably like 2 minutes ago. And this is such a lovely color so far. I'm loving the fabric that it's making, and I'm really curious to see how holding Tynn Line double will differ from holding a single strand of the Sandnes Garn liner. And I do have a Sandnes Garn liner with me as well. It is in this super beautiful matcha color, and I am excited to compare and contrast and see how the two kind of differ from each other, or if there's any difference at all, really. So that would be an interesting experiment. But so far, this fabric is super nice to work with. The strands are actually super soft. It doesn't feel very dry at all. This has been really lovely to work with so far. I do like the fabric that it's coming up. It is really nice and drapey. And yeah, it's like, I think the drop spell and the Sandnes Garn liner are pretty much almost identical in the sense that from the composition even down to the yardage, it is almost the same. I think the drop spell has slightly more yardage. So I thought that the drop spell yarn would be a slightly lighter weight compared to the Sandnes Garn liner. And holding this yarn double, I just assumed that 2 strands of this would make the Sandnes Garn liner equivalent. But for some reason, this yarn actually does, the garment that's coming out actually feels much thinner than the drop spell. But this is like a really preliminary first impression kind of thing, so maybe once I have more of the fabric knit up, maybe my impression of this will change, but for now it feels like a really nice thin piece of fabric. And I also just want to say that this is my first ever pattern of petite knits that I'm doing, and I kind of never really thought that I would knit a pattern of hers. Not because I don't like her patterns. I do like her patterns, and a lot of her patterns just look very sleek and elegant, classic designs, but to some extent I just feel like they are sometimes a little bit too simple looking, and I get that that is the whole, you know, whole petite knit vibe, and I love it. As a store-bought piece of clothing, I would totally buy it. But when it comes to getting something knitted, I do kind of prefer to have something special in that sense. Like to have a piece of garment that looks polished, like it could be store-bought, but at the same time, you kind of can't really find something like that in stores. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but yeah, just something special. So that's why I haven't really been really gravitating towards petite knits patterns, but this ivy top really changed it all. Once I saw this pattern, actually the whole ivy range, really, I just love the neck that is peeking out at the top, and I just knew I had to make it. And so that's why I had to start knitting this pattern, and who knows, after knitting this, I might actually become a petite knit cult follower as well. Who knows? But anyway, I have moved my front stitches to a stitch holder, so this is how it currently looks like. Very nice. Love it. I don't know, I'm just talking random stuff right now. But I actually did a color analysis when I went to Korea. I'm not sure if I told you guys that in my first knitting podcast, because that was when I had recently come back from Korea and decided to film a knitting podcast, I believe. And so I actually did a color analysis when I went to Korea, and I found out that I am a light spring, so that is like warm colors, very not pale colors, but a bit more lighter and warm colors. I guess this is one of those. Yeah, so because of that, in terms of my yarn choices and in the yarn that I'm buying, I have been trying to kind of gravitate and buy yarn and choose the yarn colors a little bit more consciously, to buy yarn in the color that actually suits me. Because, for example, I do not suit black, and this is a top that I bought before I found out my season. Of course, it's still okay to buy colors that are out of your season if you like it. At the end of the day, I believe that these are just guidelines as well. So I used to have clothes that didn't really flatter me all that much. Maybe this is one of the examples. Ever since then, I have been trying to make a more conscious effort to kind of buy yarn that suits me a little bit more, that complements me a little bit more, especially when it comes to my knitting, because it is fine to buy clothes in a color that may not potentially suit me if it's store-bought, but when it comes to knitting stuff, you know, you spend so much time, many hours on it. I want it to be something that would definitely complement me, and I want it to be something that I would definitely wear as well. That is why I try to be more cognizant of that.
So I'll throw another log on the fire. Let it burn.
And I just want to add, if you guys are working on something as well while watching this video, comment down below what you guys are working on. I would love to know, be it a knit project, a sewing project, anything really. Just comment down below. I am super curious because I do not have any friends around me who knit, so I basically just knit in the comforts of my own room, watching a video or Netflix, and I love that. I'm not complaining. As someone who is really introverted, I am okay, and I like actually to stay in the comforts of my own room and to knit by myself. But with that being said, I also like to know what everyone else is working on and to discuss projects and to get inspiration for future projects as well. So do comment down below so that we can let the comment section become a community of people who are just talking about the things that they love. So yeah, that'd be fun. Currently, I am at a point on the ivy top where I have split for the front and the back. I have finished doing the shoulders over here, as I mentioned just now, and then I placed the front panel on hold like that, and I'm currently working on the back panel. So this is the back panel, and you can tell that the back panel is already significantly longer than the front panel. That's also because I did some German short rows according to the pattern before I put even the front panel on hold. So that was like right at the start. So this is probably how much I have gotten done in the past half an hour, I would say. Just a couple of rows. I just need to knit this for a little bit more. I think around a couple of cm more, and then once I'm done, I can start doing the increases for the armholes. So first petite knit pattern ever. So far, pretty uneventful. I would think that this pattern is quite straightforward, and so I don't really foresee me running into any difficulties with this pattern or with comprehending any of the instructions as well. So far it's been pretty smooth sailing, so let's hope that it stays that way. Alright guys, I'm back again, and this is my progress that I've done so far. It has only been a couple of minutes, but I'm back again because I am currently at the point where I'm just knitting, alternating knit and purl rows, and I am super bored. Knitting and stockinette in around is one thing. Knitting, alternating knit and purl rows is a totally different thing, and I do not enjoy this part at all. And so I thought that I'd just come back over here and just talk with you guys for a little bit more. It can feel like we're having a conversation while we are knitting, maybe. Kind of. If you guys have any questions, by the way, to ask me, be it about myself personally, the projects I'm working on, or anything really, just comment down below, and I will just try to get to answering those questions the next time I have a kind of knitting project vlog. I am not sure when my next one will come. I hope it'll be soon because I do have to get started on my next project for my summer capsule wardrobe series. I, at this point in time, have just finished my Peepati. That is garment number 6, I believe, for the summer capsule wardrobe series, and I have to get on to my 7th one. I have an idea of what it will be. I will probably knit that. I've talked about that knitting pattern a few times already, and I think I'll finally be able to get to it. I think it'll be my first time having a finished garment in the Knitting for Olive pure silk as well, so be excited about that. I have been meaning to try the Knitting for Olive pure silk for the longest time, and I have started knitting the Umbria summer top. I'm not sure if you guys still remember that top. I started it in March this year, or February, and I have not touched it since. I've been trying to look through the photos that other people have posted on Ravelry of their finished Umbria summer tops in the hopes of trying to make myself more motivated to get to working on mine and finishing it. But my past 2 garments have all had buttons, and I am kind of sick of sewing in buttons and doing a button band, and also just knitting 2x2 rib with one strand of Knitting for Olive pure silk. The knitting process is just not really fun. I know a lot of people, I think Amy on Knee Knits have said before, knitting with the Cumulus blouse, it was pretty hard on the hands. It was not a fun knitting process. It only got better when it got to knitting in the round. But for the Umbria summer top, I will be knitting flat the whole way through from top to bottom, and it is 2x2 rib the whole way through, so it's not fun at all. I don't know when I can find the motivation to actually get started on knitting that top, but yeah, I do hope to get that finished object I wouldn't think by the end of this year, but hopefully by next year I can at least have made a little bit more progress on that project. But yeah, that is why I haven't had a finished knitting for Olive Pure Silk garment before, and I do want to have one because I have heard so many good things about the finished garment in the pure silk being super worth it. So I am hoping that I would be able to have one for myself in the future as well. What else do I have to talk about? Yeah, and also I just wanted to ask you guys if there are any videos that you guys want me to post. I know I have been posting a lot of like project vlogs and knitting podcasts. I did a few pattern recommendation videos. The 20 hot summer gold knitting patterns did pretty well given the size of my channel, and that seemed like something that you guys like. Yeah, I just want to know if there's any other videos that you guys would want me to post or to make about. I know that the entirety of the northern hemisphere is going into fall and winter, and because of that I feel slightly left behind because I am still solely making summer and warm weather knits, and that's because I live in a climate that is hot like all year round. And because of that, I'm wondering if you guys would still be interested to watch my podcasts or to see the things that I'm making, because it is kind of not really relevant anymore in that sense because everyone else is knitting sweaters, scarves, beanies, and here I am making a tank top. So yeah, I would just like to know, when you guys watch podcasts, do you guys watch for the garments, or like do you guys watch for the person, I guess, is my question. Because for me, I would say it's a mix of both. Like maybe the first time I discover a knitting YouTuber is because of the things that they're making, but after a while I actually kind of stay because I just kind of have fostered a relationship with them in that sense. So I'm just interested to see what they're up to in general. So I'm just wondering if that's the same, if you guys would stick around for like just podcast after podcast of warm weather knits and the occasional sweater for an entire year. So I wish I could live in a place that had 4 seasons as well. I think that would be amazing, because living in a climate that is hot all year round is just it just feels really... I don't think I'm a summer person. I think I love the autumn season the most, you know, where the colors start changing, where the weather gets cooler, a bit more crisp. That is something that I really like. When I go overseas and it is like autumn or spring, it just feels so nice. Yeah, I wish I could be living in a climate with 4 seasons as well, so that I could also experience what it's like to have to knit sweaters and beanies and stuff. But with that being said, I do have an order from Surella that's coming. I think it's coming in October, and I bought some... I think it's a sock set. It is a 50-gram skein and a 25-gram skein together, and I think I'm going to use those skeins. No, I definitely am going to use those yarns to make a Musselburgh hat. And this is a pattern by Yusoda Teak. It is just probably the most popular beanie pattern that there is on Ravelry, at least. The last I checked, there was around 20,000 projects, which is insane to me. I've never seen a number that high for a project on Ravelry. Yeah, I am excited to start knitting that. I did mention before in a previous video, I am not sure how long ago that video was or in which video it was, but I mentioned that I had to make one Musselburgh hat for my mother-in-law in the Cascade Heritage, I believe. I'm just looking at my yarn stash from over here. Yeah, it is the Cascade Heritage, and I have yet to get started on that. I'm not sure why, but I just haven't really felt the inclination to start yet. It could be because I've never knit a beanie in my life. I've knit 3 scarves, 2 sweaters, and of course a ton of summer garments, but I've never knit a beanie yet. I know that it is a special cast on. I know with crochet, I have knit some caps or like hats with crochet, and I do those with a magic circle, so it is pretty easy to start knitting from a small circumference when it comes to crochet. But for knitting, I'm just not really sure how that works. I have to get to learning that. That would definitely be a new technique that I have yet to try before. So I guess that is what is kind of blocking me from starting on that project. So yeah, And I think this is my first time wearing black on this channel, and I'm not sure if you guys can see, but there's so much fluff from the yarn that's on my top right now. So yeah, this yarn does peel a little bit. It could be because it is just that soft. So I have to leave in a couple of minutes for work. I forgot to talk about earlier was my gauge swatch. I didn't actually gauge swatch for this project. I did gauge swatch with one strand of thin liner, so I held one strand of thin liner with 3mm needles, and I did a gauge swatch for that because I initially thought that I wanted to knit with the thin liner held single to see how the fabric would look like single, because I did buy the Sandnes Garn liner, and so I wanted to see exactly how the thin liner would differ from the liner, but I since changed my mind, decided to hold the thin liner double as petite knit intended. Because I already knit an initial gauge swatch, I was kind of lazy to knit a second one, although I know that the gauge swatch would tell me nothing about, you know, knitting with thin liner held double. I just couldn't bring myself to knit a second gauge swatch for a pattern that looks otherwise quite straightforward and easy to modify and try on as we go along, so I didn't really want to do another gauge swatch. Also, the second reason why is because I am pretty sure I would either be the double XS or the XS range, and the cast on stitches, the number of stitch counts increases so far have been exactly the same for double XS and XS. So I decided that I will just continue knitting following the double XS pattern, which is basically the stitch recommendations for the XS size as well. And then now I have a whole new gauge swatch for me to measure. So petite knit actually said to do a couple of rows to a certain length, so it's not even defined by the row counts, so it doesn't really matter in that sense. And I have a whole big piece of a gauge swatch right now which I measured, and I am currently, I think, just one stitch off from with my stitch count from petite knit's gauge swatch measurements. So I am just a little bit tighter by one stitch, which is fine with me. Yeah, so I think I will continue following the double XS size. I don't mind that this is gonna be a slightly tighter garment on me. I do believe that that will kind of suit me a little bit more. Other than that, I wouldn't film for the rest of the day. I think I may knit this tomorrow as well. It is pretty monotonous and straightforward, so I probably wouldn't film that, but let's just try it on and I'll show you guys how it's looking like on me so far. So I have obviously some ways to go before being able to cast on for the underarms using my current tank top as a guideline. I'm looking at myself in the mirror so I can see how it looks like, and I think this is really nice. Very pleased with this. I have to go to work right now, so I will get back to you guys whenever I have time to film again. Day 3 of me knitting the ivy top. If you see this cap, you might have a guess as to which video I just finished filming, but I have to meet a friend in maybe 20 minutes and I want to bring the ivy top along with me because I have somewhere else to go after that. So it is all knotted up as usual. This is my ivy top so far. This is the front. This is the back. I have reached the point where I can do the increases for the armholes, so this is how it's looking like. Really nice, and I have, I think, 10 more rounds to go before I'm done with the back panel, and then I can do the front panel. I'm hoping that by the end of today I will be able to join it around, and then it'll be really smooth sailing from here on out. But I don't think I can do that. I'm not so sure. We'll see how it goes. I'll get back to you.
Let it burn.
I can't remember the last time I came on here with an update for you guys for my ivy top, and this is the progress so far. I love the color, it's so yellow and so nice, and I think it really suits me as well. I do believe this color is really suitable for me. I'm glad I've been working with more yellow, and I hope to add more yellow pieces to my collection. And also, I'm currently just working on the body. I've been knitting in the round for a while now, and this is the progress that I got done. I actually haven't been working with this top for a while because I was, well, if you guys watched my recent video, at this point in time I'm not gonna be sure the order in which I'm gonna be posting this video in relation to my sweater video. But I just finished knitting a sweater, and that was the perfect sweater video. If you guys watched that, I was kind of spending all of my energy and efforts on that sweater, so I actually couldn't work on this top as much as I wanted to. But anyway, with that being said, I have also come to the end of one of the balls of yarn, so I am going to be adding a new ball of yarn now. So yeah, I'm hoping now that I finished knitting with the other sweater, I'm hoping that I will be able to kind of get a little bit further on with this top, hopefully to be able to get it done by the end of next week. I'm hoping. I'm not so sure if that's possible actually, but we shall see, we shall see. I'm not in any much of a rush to do it. Actually, I kind of am, because I really want to wear this top. But yeah, I don't want a situation where I'm just done with knitting the length and then it turns out to be too short and I don't like it. So, you know, trying to take my time with everything.
Another vice, grab my old lighter. This cigar helps me slow.
So this is how my top looks like so far. I just wanted to do a try on because I have yet to try it on since joining in around, I believe. So I just wanted to see how this top will look like on me, and I thought this top would be more bra friendly, but it just seems to show off just a little bit of the bra. Of course, if I adjust it, it's fine for the most part. So it's all good still. Love the color. Yeah. I love how the color looks. And as for the length, I thought I was further along, but I want it a bit longer, maybe an inch or two longer. And yeah, I like how the top looks like so far. I do believe I can get it done by the end of this week, I'm hoping, because I really want to wear it out. Yeah, I have been working a little bit slower because I fell sick again for the second time in the past 2 months, and so I haven't been as productive as I wanted to. However, I do believe I can get it done by the end of this week, so I'll show you guys the progress then. It has been a couple of days, but I am back. I finished blocking my ivy top, and this is how she looks like. And I think she looks super cute. I'm so glad that I finally am able to wear this top and to have this ivy top as part of my wardrobe. And this is how she looks like, the neck-wise and everything. Let me talk to you guys about some statistics as well. The yarn I used is, of course, as you guys know, Sandnes Garn Tynn Line held double. The color is 2112, which is also known as light yellow. As for the yardage, I used 2.5 balls, which means I used around 550 meters of yarn. I started 24th August and finished 29 September, so this one was a bit of a slower knit. It was straightforward, easy, so I could have finished it faster if I wanted to, but I just kind of got distracted by other projects, and so that's why I took a bit longer for this project. The hours spent is around 12 hours and 34 minutes. And yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the fit of this top. So the first thing is that my gauge for this top is 21 stitches and 31 rows. So it is a little bit smaller in terms of the stitch count as compared to the ivy top. Specifically, I think the gauge swatch for the ivy top is 20 stitches by, I think, 28 rows. And so because of that, my top is going to turn out slightly smaller than what the ivy top's final measurements are. However, I'm not too fussed about that. I do like things to be a little bit more fitted, and I think the final fit of this top is great as well. I think this top is fitted, it doesn't have any ease in it, and I love this fit. I think it is perfect. For the underarms, it is also really good. I don't think it's too tight that my underarms feel a bit uncomfortable, but not too low either that I feel like my bra will be exposed or that it doesn't feel flattering. So this top for the most part feels really flattering. This is my first time wearing this top out. And one thing that I want to add is that the top, because it is a little bit more of a high neck, I feel like at some points the top still sort of writes back a little bit. There is short row shaping for the back, but I think maybe there could have been a bit more short row shaping done, which would definitely have allowed for more comfort in terms of wearing it. However, because it's a high neck, I think by nature of its design, it's going to choke my neck a little bit more than other tops. But for the most part, I have no complaints about this top. The only thing is, and I mentioned it in my knitting podcast episode 5, I'm not sure which video is coming up first, but I mentioned that I don't like the fact that there are no finishes done for the top. I believe a designer as big as petiteknit, or mainly any designer that is going to have a paid pattern, I feel like there should be some finishing done for a garment, because I do believe that that is what kind of makes the garment more finished. Yeah, it just looks a little bit more put together. I don't like the fact that there are raw edges on the edges of the armholes, because it just looks a little bit messy in my opinion. The minimum that could have been done was some salvage stitches for the edge. That's what was done for the sabai top, and so even though there was no finishing for the sabai top, I still really like it because the armholes look really neat because of the salvage stitches. So that's just one thing to take note of. If I were to redo this top again or make a second one, I would probably alter the pattern slightly to make the underarms a little bit lower, and I'll go back in and do maybe an I-cord bind off or something like that, just to make it a little bit neater. That's just something I would change, but given that it is a paid pattern, I somewhat do expect to have that option to be able to do some finishes if I wanted to. So that's just one thing that I wanted to bring up with regard to this ivy top. Other than that, for the most part, I really love this pattern, and I can see the appeal of this pattern because it's easy to follow, the instructions are clear, and the final garment is really nice. I just wished that, although this is a really beginner friendly pattern, and I do love that makes her patterns in general more accessible in terms of newer beginner knitters learning to knit, but there should still be that option for additional touches and additional finishes if maybe more experienced knitters want to do those. So that's just my 2 cents. In general, I would say this pattern was great and I love it, and I'm really happy with this final look of this top. I can understand now why this top took social media, or at least my Instagram, by storm, and I can see myself wearing this top so often. So that's all I have for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and if you were knitting along while watching this video, do comment down below what you were working on. I am curious, I would like to know, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!